Today we're going to build the cylinder block and the valve body. Let's do it. Hi all, my name is Lee, welcome to the channel. So in the first episode of this series, building a horizontal steam engine, we completed the base and the main frame. And now today we're going to start on the cylinder body and the valve body. So let's take a closer look at this because I've found a few mistakes and some changes I want to make. So I'm going to be making the cylinder and the valve body out of this piece of steel rather than the aluminium. But one thing I have noticed is on the bill of materials, it calls out that the cylinder and the valve body are actually the same size, 40 millimeters length. However, if you look at the plans, the valve body is actually 45 millimeters in length. So there's a slight discrepancy between the bill of materials and what's on the plans. So I think I need to go with what's on the actual plans, and that's what I'll do. The next issue I've found is because these are conversion from Imperial, the cylinder, to get close to 1/2 inch, they've actually called out a 12.5 millimeter bore for the actual cylinder. Now the issue is I don't have a 12.5 millimeter reamer, and I'd prefer to ream the hole to make sure it's as smooth as possible. My reamer actually only goes up to 12 millimeters, that's all I have. So I'm probably going to have to modify this to be a 12 millimeter bore so I can use my largest reamer. What I'll do is I'll actually drill out 11.5 millimeters and then I'll finish with the reamer at 12 millimeters, and hopefully that's perfect. But before I do that, what I'll actually do is you've got these 3 holes that I need to drill. One of them only goes into the bore itself, as I think that will be one of the valves. But the issue is I know from experience from building my first steam engine, if you drill that hole after you've made the bore, it means you have to put the reamer back inside to clear out the indentation that drilling through makes. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to drill all the holes first. These 2 go straight through, and I'm going to drill this one only halfway through the block. And then when I drill it out and then ream it, it will be a perfect smooth hole, rather than having to re-ream after I've drilled. So I think that's everything covered on here. The first thing I need to do is prep this piece of steel. Now I'm going to need to cut this in half by hand, and then I'll tidy it up, but I will use the milling machine to get it to the correct size. So that'll be 20 millimeters thick. One of them is 40 millimeters long, the other one 45 millimeters long. So this is about 23.3 millimeters thick, so I need to touch off and take about 3.3 millimeters off to make it the 20 mil. I'm just going to face mill this first, because then that will give me less material that I have to then saw in half. So let's do that. So this piece will be the cylinder body. So I'm just going to square it off, take it to size, and then we can mark out on there. So I've prepped my cylinder and my valve body, and we'll do the cylinder next. So what I'm going to do is put the holes in first, but this middle one I only put in halfway through. And that just means when I drill out the bore and I ream it, I can just do that in one go. If I drill this hole last, then I'm going to have to re-ream it because it will push out the inside of the bore. So let's get this lined up. draw these holes on, get on the mill and start drilling. So I've found the edges and I've put it into my drill. So this is the first hole is 3mm in and 3mm from the edge. I'm actually going to use a center drill first just to get them started like before. So let's get these drilled out. The first 2 holes on this edge go all the way through. The middle hole, I only need to go halfway through because that will connect to the cylinder. So these 3 holes will work perfectly. Obviously these 2 go all the way through. That one's only gone halfway through and that means I can still drill out the bore and then ream it in one go. So the next thing I have noticed on here, I just need to be a little careful. So although the bore is centered on this orientation, when I turn it over to that one, it's actually offset slightly by 1mm. So I just need to be careful of that. If you see there's 11mm. So I'll set this up in the mill now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drill it out for 11.5mm and then I'm going to ream it to 12 because that's the biggest reamer I have. So I've lined it up on the correct location, 34mm deep. The only thing I needed to be a little careful, my drills actually have a little center drill at the end, and I didn't want that to interfere with the screws, but it's thin enough it won't, and it's short enough it won't go all the way through. So let's get this down, 34mm. So the cylinder's finished now. It's looking really good. The hole's been reamed nicely as well. It looks really nice and smooth in there. I don't think I'll do any more polishing for that. It's pretty low tolerances on this. So that's first piece done. The next piece we're going to work on now is the valve body. Again, I've just got to double check exactly what I'm doing. There's a 6mm diameter hole all the way through. And then there's various other holes that I'll need to measure up. And again, I'm going to draw on here, mark it out correctly just to give me a guide when I put it on the mill. But I'll use the Draw again to actually get the exact dimensions, but I do like to have it drawn on, just so I know I'm clear on what I'm doing. So I've set this up at a weird angle in the vise because I didn't like the overhang. I'm trying to avoid the parallels. So now I should be clear to do all of these 3 holes. The Draw's been set up. The 2 edge ones need to go all the way through. The centre one needs to go about 14mm in. That's the exhaust port. So that's the valve body complete. Pretty pleased how this turned out. I actually did make one mistake on one of the screws, the screw holes that attaches it to the frame. So all I did was I just put a file in there just to smooth it out a bit and give me a little bit more room. But other than that, all of the others have worked perfectly. I also made that 6mm hole and reamed it out as well, so that should be nice and smooth. So that's pretty good. So I've done these 2 parts now. The next job is just to screw them onto the base. So let's do that now just to make sure everything fits properly. So this is looking great so far. Happy with how it's coming along. All of the air holes line up, the exhaust and the valves. Everything's looking good. The holes are reamed. So I'm pretty pleased how this is coming along. So for the next part of the project, we're going to be working on some of the an assortment of components. So flying wheel, conrods, crank, and a few spacers and miscellaneous items. So thanks for watching this video and join me on the next one, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers.